Okay. Okay, we're now live. Welcome to today's meeting on Thursday, the 12th of December. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photography, making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Don't please collect personal belongings, and the escape route is to the front on the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking and speak clearly for everyone and for it to be picked up by the YouTube. Lovely, thank you. Right. So, Margaret, do we have any substitutes or apologies, please?
Yes, Chair, we do not have any substitutes today and there are no apologies either. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for coming in December when you're all so busy, I'm sure. Do I have any declarations of interest for any items today, please? No. Okay. Right, so we'll go to the minutes for the last committee meeting, which was the 21st of November. I'll just go through page by page. We've got page 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, thank you very much. Today we didn't have a site... Yes, hello?
Very brief point of order, Chair. I'm sure the committee would like to thank Councillor Agar for all the goodies that she brings us throughout the year, especially at Christmas time.
Oh, I think that's a very, very good idea. Yes.
So if we could put it on record our thanks to because she always does it, and it's very generous.
We do. And it's particularly nice today because it's a festive planning meeting, isn't it? So we like that. Thank you very much. Today, we don't have any public participation or representation, but we have Councillor Wilmore in attendance for item 7. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, lovely. Okay, so we've got, is it you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Paul for agenda item 7. It's the Scout Hut on Medway Road.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So this application relates to the former Scout Hut, which is situated on Medway Road. And members, before we get into this application, it's worthy of note that the government issued the revised NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, at midday today. So references within your report where it references the NPPF 2023, they have been checked by officers, and whilst there may be paragraph numbers changed, the content of those paragraphs are identical to the previous NPPF. So in respect of this report, and again with the later report, we will confirm again for you for the determination process, but there is no changes for the material considerations in this case. So the site, the building is currently vacant of the former Scout Hut, and the application is reported to Planning Committee as the City Council own the building. Just to get an idea in terms of allocations, the site is allocated as green space, and it is also close to the Perrywood Local Nature Reserve. Just some photos of the site for you. That is the existing building. That's looking down the access road with existing informal parking to the left, and you can see play equipment on the play area and then the green space beyond. That's looking from the play area, looking back towards the building. This is looking from the cul-de-sac area of Medway Road. The car park that you can see to the right is owned by Platform Housing and is used informally by residents and users of the building, although there's no agreed use between Platform and the building, but it is informally used. That's looking towards the turning head of this part of Medway Road. This is looking from Hamble Close, where you saw that head of the cul-de-sac previously, that links through by a pedestrian route, and you can see the Scout Hut on the left-hand side, the pedestrian route, and then into Medway Road. And the area in front again is used as an informal parking area and drop-off area for the Scout Hut and for residents as well. So the proposal before members seeks to utilise the building as a mixed use that includes a day centre, a youth group and summer holiday club. The specific details are set out within paragraph 3.1 of your reports. There are no external changes to the building and no changes internally to the room's layout, with the rooms just being put to specific uses. So that's the existing layout, and you'll see that the layout doesn't change, but obviously the areas of use do. So I'll do that again just for those who want to spot the difference. So that's the existing and that's the proposed. The use of the building will continue as a community use, with the building being acceptable and its compliance with policy principles for buildings of this nature. There is also support for the application, which provides a significant social benefit to the surrounding area. It's not considered that the proposed use will result in any additional noise or disturbance over and above that would exist with the existing use. Most of the officer considerations have been around highway matters, and they have now been fully investigated as part of the consideration of this application, with the applicant submitting a transport note to clarify the number of vehicle movements and established what the required parking arrangements are. The Highway Authority has been consulted and are now satisfied that the anticipated trip generation can be accommodated on the existing network, and the proposed use will not result in any adverse harm to highway safety or the impact of users of footpaths or roads. The site is well connected to the surrounding area and is highly permeable, and you can see there the cycle and footpath routes through the site. In terms of the parking layout, the proposal formalises the existing parking arrangements to the side of the building, and these do provide 6 car parking spaces, including 1 accessible space, 2 motorcycle spaces and 5 cycle spaces. This is considered acceptable and it can be secured by an appropriate condition. The proposed parking arrangements do not reduce any of the green space, and conditions are proposed to seek for enhancements to the landscaping and the provision of bird box to enhance biodiversity. The proposed change of use, in summary, is considered to be appropriate and provides a community-based operation within the heart of a community that needs it. The technical matters have been fully considered, and in particular the highway impact and parking arrangements, and they have been found to be acceptable. There are conditions that are required to ensure that the use can proceed in accordance with the policies of the development plan, providing enhancements where appropriate. Overall, the scheme provides significant social, environmental and economic benefits to the locality and can be fully supported. The application is therefore recommended for approval subject to the conditions as listed and the amended condition 9 within the late paper. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Paul. We've now got Councillor Wilmore. As the local member, you can speak for as long as you like, and then members will probably like to ask you questions afterwards. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As a City Councillor for Nunnery Ward, I wish to speak in favour of this planning application. High quality early years is crucial for lifelong learning, behaviour and future life outcomes. During their first 5 years, children's brains undergo the most critical stage of development that will have a fundamental impact on their physical, cognitive, social and emotional skills for life. They call them the formative years for a reason. Giving children the best start in life is a key part of the new government's policy framework, with a target of ensuring that 75% of children are school ready. Currently, a third of children are not, rising to just under 50% for children who would be eligible for free school meals, which applies to the majority of the current preschools' current demographic. Delivering this will require baby and early childhood facilities, such as the preschool and nursery can deliver, to ensure quality childcare provision. A skilled early years workforce can have a transformative impact on children's speech, language, communication and social skills. This impact is particularly felt in children from more disadvantaged families, such as those that the Lighthouse Centre will serve. Nunnery Wood Preschool and Nursery is currently based within the hall at Ronkswood Hub, a venue that has been adequate to this to date, but only that, just adequate. With the incorporation of the skills unit at the hub, it's becoming more of a mixed-use venue and is in danger of becoming inadequate. It is one of only 2 preschool providers within Nunnery, and these are precious early years places that we simply cannot afford to lose, with provision being in short supply across the city. Medway becoming available after the departure of All Sorts Performing Arts seemed initially like a perfect solution. However, it has been beset with challenges, from the nursery status to change of use and then highways requirements. It's been incredibly stressful for the nursery and also unsettling for children and their families. Since becoming involved, I've been thoroughly impressed with Claire's dedication and attitude, and she and her team have risen to every challenge in their way, seeking support and guidance at every stage from a range of experts to make sure that they've done everything that's been asked of them. This has included the city's active travel officer, and I've connected them with Bike Worcester. The investment that the Worcester municipal charities have made in them is testament to the esteem in which they are held. Under these proposals, the nursery and preschool will evolve into a family centre, signalling the move to a whole family-centred, holistic provision. In addition to the early years provision, Claire's plans to accommodate a youth group in the evenings will be a most welcome addition for Nunnery. Ronkswood Hub lost its youth provision some time ago, and it's no coincidence that we have ongoing problems with youth antisocial behaviour. We recently had a meeting with some of the young people in Ronkswood, and as expected, they told us that they hang around and cause trouble because they're bored and they've nothing to do. When we asked them what they wanted, once we'd got beyond requests for a splash pad and a pump track, what they wanted was actually quite simple. Arts and crafts, cooking, baking, growing veg, and somewhere to just be with their friends and have a drink and somewhere to have a wee. All things that Claire's vision for the Lighthouse Centre will provide. Is Medway the perfect venue? No. As you know, it sits at the end of a cul-de-sac, but the travel plans have ensured that any negative impact is minimised or mitigated. The majority of families using the preschool and nursery are not car owners, and even if they were, due to traffic on Newtown Road, the centre is far more accessible using the network of paths around Perrywood. In addition to the Ronkswood and Medway estates, it's also linked by footpath to the newer Woodland Edge estate, which has lots of young families who desperately require preschool provision. Securing the future of the centre and all the benefits that will come with it to the community far outweigh any of my concerns. Perfect cannot be allowed to be the enemy of the good, or in this case, the very good. The location of the centre is not going to change. If this application is not successful, then I fear that no future application will be either, and we have a valuable community building sitting empty when it could be filled with children exploring through play and nourishing their little brains on their way to a great start in their lifelong learning journey and providing them with the best start to their education. In conclusion, the Lighthouse Family Centre team have proven themselves to be proactive and receptive throughout the whole planning process. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Claire and the team over the last year, and her commitment to the family she supports is unwavering. They are an indispensable community asset and they need a permanent home. I urge you to support this application. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Has anyone got any questions, please, for Councillor Wilmore? Councillor Kinsley, then Councillor Amos. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for that outline. That was really, really helpful and interesting to hear. In fact, there was I think the need for this sort of facility, I don't think anyone can doubt. There was a report on the radio recently talking about how young children are increasingly unprepared for school in a number of ways. So really good to hear about these applications coming forward. I just have one question. With regard to the youth element in the evening, really pleased to hear that as well. I think that's a terrific step. What sort of age group were they anticipating using the youth group in the evening, please? Thank you.
I'm not aware of that detail. Claire was hoping to be here, but she's in a safeguarding meeting that's overrun, which is why she can't be here herself. From the conversations we've had, I think it was for the whole family. So it was from preschool, all the way up to primary school and then into teens. So I think there was an expectation that it would be for the whole spectrum of the family. Would be there. But I will happily stand corrected if that's not the case.
Councillor Amos, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, but I think on reflection my question is more for the Highways Officer who isn't here today.
Noted, Councillor Amos. Anybody else got any questions at all? No? Honestly, thank you very much for coming and giving us that insight into the applicants is really, really lovely to hear, and we have listened. So you can step back if you like, and now we'll open the floor for questions for officers, please. And I think, Paul, you're here with a Highways hat on as well, aren't you? For Councillor Amos, if he has anything to ask.
I haven't got a Highways hat, but I will certainly do my best to answer the questions.
There you go. All right. Do you want to start then, Councillor Amos?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm sure Mr Round will do his best. Let's hope it's good enough, but I know he will try to do his best. I mean, in terms of the principle and the practice, I fully support this application. There's no question about that. But it does come back to the thorny old question of parking, because it will affect people, like it or not. And I think some of the assumptions and conclusions from Highways are at best weird. If we look, for example, Chair, at paragraph 7.33, it says up to 24 children with the capacity for up to 50, and we've got to work on the assumption that it's likely to be filled, it's going to be a popular facility, a capacity up to 50. And then it says, its conclusion on all that is, it would generate 16 car trips, morning peak, 17 evening peak. Well, believe it or not, Chair, I wasn't born yesterday. If you look at any primary school in the county, the idea that you could have 50 children and you're only going to have 16 car movements, I find bizarre, but obviously Mr Round can perhaps interpret what Highways meant by that. Paragraph 7.36 then goes on to say the application proposes to provide 7 on-site car parking spaces, which is down from 9. So you're increasing the use of the built facility, actually reduce the number of car parking spaces. I know everybody's going to go cycling about, go on motorbikes, but again, I live in the real world. And it then admits in paragraph 7.37 that the profile and number of staff may change in the future. So they're not making any provision for more staff or... and the final point, Chair, is paragraph 7.39, where it talks about a parking management plan will be required, and for the purpose of clarity, this will be secured by appropriately worded planning condition. And I'm assuming, Chair, Mr Round will correct me if I'm wrong, that that's condition 8. Have I got that right? Yeah, great. But that being the case, who is going to enforce anything? Again, but putting that to one side, that's quite a big traffic car park management plan, it's actually called. It's got 4 meaty elements in that. Can somebody just clarify who is going to, in a sense, sign that off as being satisfactory and adequate for the purposes of when this facility is fully up and running? Because it talks about allocation, details of the scheme, the details of a communication strategy to discourage parents, mechanisms for managing, monitoring and enforcing and reviewing the CMP. Who is actually going to do all this? Because, again, as I always say at committee chair, conditions are really not worth the paper they're written on, in the sense that they could come along as soon as they've got planning permission and remove the condition or amend the condition, and it doesn't come to this committee. So I would like a bit more detail on that, Chair, if it's available.
Through you, Chair. Some really useful questions, I think, for the debate. In respect of 7.33, what the assessment has undertaken is looked at the surrounding area and the permeability of walking, cycling, and the provision of where the draw of people are coming from, and has taken the view that in the main, and I think Councillor Wilmore bore this out with the comments that she made, is that yes, the amount of vehicle trips is likely to be 16 during that morning peak and 17 during the evening peak. That's taking in, it's not just the fact of 24 children and we've got to have 24 cars, or 50 children, we've got to have 50 cars. There are variables within that assessment. So taking the demographic of the area, taking the opportunities for walking and cycling, and that's the conclusion that's been arrived at. And bearing in mind that's a 16 vehicle car trips, that's not in addition to what the existing use is, that is just a pure analysis of the proposed use. So in terms of members' considerations, they've got to consider of what would a scout hut attract in terms of vehicle numbers, or how would people get there in terms of the existing facility. In terms of the car parking, and it is referenced that there are 9 spaces, but you'll also notice in paragraph 7.35 that the officer's comment is that it's very unlikely that 9 cars can actually be accommodated within that space. And when you actually looked at the photographs, you would have seen that actually is constrained a little bit by play equipment anyway. So there's not 9 spaces there existing, and what this provides is a very formalised 7 car parking spaces rather than an area which is informal car parking spaces. In terms of the condition, that is a condition that's been recommended by the Highway Authority, and the Highway Authority will sign off on the management plan. In terms of the mechanisms for review, that will be down to the centre themselves to be able to review that. If that is not being done, there is the enforceability of the planning department to ensure that we see that the management plan is there. We will be able to see when it has been reviewed by, in terms of their review dates, and we can enforce that accordingly. So I am confident that, as I always am with a condition that's been proposed, that it is enforceable and that it is reasonable in on this occasion. So hopefully that's answered all your questions. I don't think I've forgotten anything.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Round has answered all those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I mean, one thing just to highlight is the addition to condition 9 for the mode shift stars. Instead of, it's going to be, we've got it achieved within 12 months of occupation, but then approved for the duration of use, hereby approved. So the idea is that the mode shift stars is maintained whilst they're there. And I think that gives a bit more strength to that condition. Who's next, please? Let's show hands. I didn't take anyone else. Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Good to hear about the use of mode shift stars. It sounds very encouraging, and I'm surprised it's not wider subscription to this free scheme for all local schools. Quick question on the presentation we saw. There was a one of the slides was showing cycle parking, motorcycle parking. It appears as though the car was driven in forwards. I'm just wondering how, from the right-hand side, how a driver would get out if there's bike stands there. Is the presumption that with the tandem parking, that the frontmost car would have reversed in? I just want to just double check that single item in that slide. It just caught my eye. Thank you.
Margaret, could we get the slide back up, because I think it might be. I don't think that there is restriction. So if I can just go back. It's not Can you click? Wait a minute. No, it's on. Can you click on the screen? Might just, there we go. Lovely. So, in terms of yeah, yeah. Either way, I mean, it does look, according to that picture, that it is going to be difficult, and reversing in would be beneficial. I think on by looking at that, I think you're correct. But yeah, it works from a tracking point of view. But as you say, it would require the occupant to be able to get out next to the pathway rather than next to the cycle space. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So, Paul, I quite like seeing that plan again because I can see the cycle shelter. I don't know if everyone spotted that first time. Yeah, so that's a good way of knowing that the cycle stands would be have a bit of shelter. That's pretty good. Councillor Kimberley?
Thank you. In showing us that slide, you answered one of my questions, but then raised another for me, as it happens. So obviously there's the cycle shelter. I was going to ask, in terms of transport, given the age bracket that this facility will be serving, you'd imagine some of them will be wanting to cycle in, and secure cycle storage sounds like a very sensible measure. I just want to ask the question, very naively, why there is space carved out for motorcycles. I'm not sure that necessarily furthers the target demographic of parents dropping off children or children coming in, if I'm honest, but I'm happy to sort of have the logic of that explained to me. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, quite simply, I believe it's for staff. So for staff or for leaders of the facility, and it gives them the opportunities to do that.
Thank you for indulging me.
Councillor Kimberley, you have made me think as well, because for the demographic, I would think that some children are going to come on scooters. So I wonder whether they're going to be able to squeeze in the scooter rack somewhere, but maybe we could add that to a condition. There we go. Sorry.
It's an interesting thought, and I think that's probably something that we could leave to the operator to decide. There is space towards, if you're looking at it from the front to the left-hand side, there is an area of grass towards the side. So I think there is opportunity within the demise to be able to put something, but I think that's, leave that for the operator.
Well, actually, that could be part of their mode shift stars. They'd use that as an excellent thing to start them off with, wouldn't they? Yeah. I've got Councillor Agar, please.
Thank you, Chair. As one of the members for the area, I know this area very well indeed, and have done over nearly 20 years. So I can probably answer some of your questions that Paul was so ably fielding there. This section of Medway Road is very narrow, it's true. The Scout Hut itself is very close to the end of that cul-de-sac where Medway Road is bisected. And the section of pedestrian area, access to the area, comes from the other side that you saw on the photographs there. And just beyond that that wide and absolutely marvellous pedestrianised access, there is an area of Hamble Close at the end, the other end of Medway Road there, which is really tends to be used occasionally as informal parking. It's a very large area and would be an excellent dropping off place and wouldn't really cause any problems to anybody. My only concern perhaps would be in terms of highways, would be the parking area, the tandem parking right next to the play area. And I would actually like to see some kind of separation of perhaps a fence right on the edge of the curtilage could be erected so no child actually ran into it. But that's a question that you'll want to discuss and decide, members. But if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Councillor Agar. I think that's really useful. With regards to a fence, would that be within the red line or would it be outside of this application?
Again, it's likely to be outside the application. It's probably, again, something that the applicant and the City Council, as part of their play space, once the works are starting to be operational, that's probably something for the play team to be able to look at and see what's appropriate in from a health and safety point of view.
Thank you. I think that would be useful, and if we could write to the relevant officers and committee, that would be excellent, because we saw the vehicle movements reversing towards the play area, and I think actually that's not very desirable, and some kind of separation from the play area would make me feel a lot better. But otherwise, I suppose I want to say that I haven't discussed this, deliberately haven't discussed this with Elaine, so that I'm not tainted by any predetermination ideas. But I think the point is that this is a very sustainable kind of development. And let's not forget, there would be a fallback position, which we haven't actually talked about. This was in use as a scout hut. It was in use by performing arts groups. And I went to a number of performances there, and there wasn't a problem with parking, to tell the truth. People did walk in, and where they parked responsibly. So I think, on the whole, this meets all the social requirements of the sustainability requirement, and more besides. So I would definitely be very much in favour of this. And, of course, we still do not have much youth work across the city at all. I mean, the Community Trust has more or less stopped doing it. The only ones you have are the uniformed organisations like the Scouts, Guides and Cadets. So to see a new youth group opening up would be wonderful. And as Councillor Woolmore has pointed out, that development, not just up to 5 years old, but onward into slightly later life in their teenage years, is absolutely vital. And I speak as a former youth work manager, to young people. It makes their life chances so much better than they might otherwise be. That's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Pat. Councillor Kinsley?
Thank you, Chair. Question for Paul. You may or may not be able to help with this, but I firstly want to say that echo Councillor Agard's point about this has previously been a scout hut, and my knowledge of scout movements, you have a lot of traffic turning up at a certain time, and I suspect this facility would have much more kind of even kind of usage of parking and arrivals and whatever. So I just want to make that point. But one thing I can't work out why the Highways Authority have gone into such detail with this application, and yet they don't with all applications that have a kind of an impact on roads. Are you able to shed any light on that for us, or is that something we would just have to go and ask the county people about? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I think there was the deferral comment that came originally was trying to quantify, because there was a number of uses, because it's not just a single use, because it's a mixed use that goes throughout the day. It was to try and work out how that worked in terms of trip generation. So, and I think also about the parking area, because it was an informal parking area that wasn't laid out properly in terms of tracking and making sure that worked in terms of safety for users of the footpath. So there was a number of elements along with the narrowness of Medway Road, and there was a few factors that came in together that required some further investigation. The transport note which the applicants commissioned dealt with all of that, and that's exactly the right way of doing it, so that we had a technical note that dealt with all of those things, so that we could come to planning committee and provide that confidence. I think without it, it would have been a little bit of a finger in the air position, and that's not a really good position to be when you're determining planning applications. To have robust evidential data that you can rely on is something that we needed to have. So I think for those reasons, that's why the Highway Authority were particularly concerned in this case.
Thank you very much for that. If I can just come back on that, it is useful to have that information, and I think my sort of response would be, could we not have had it in with other applications? I'm thinking of one particular coffee establishment that we were discussing a few months ago, where we had absolutely nothing from Highways at all. They just said, oh, it's fine, and actually it would have been useful then to have seen a bit more detail, as we are seeing today. So, yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Udall?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think there's groundswell of opinion around the table that this is a good thing, a good proposition. And as far as I can see from the impact on neighbouring properties, there have been no residential objections whatsoever, which is a good thing. All my concerns, which I had, were minor concerns, but they've all been addressed in the conditions. So on that basis, I would move the recommendation that it be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Udall. So that's a proposal with no amendments. Lovely. And Councillor Agard, second. Right. So the only thing we'd have to do if we were ready to go to a vote is that we have got the amended condition 9 as the late paper. Okay. And the only thing I want to say is that I'd like to thank officers for condition 13, where they have really tried to put condition in to add some planting into this project. You know, it's a very, bits of the site are a bit barren, and actually doing something to improve the entrance and the feel around the building, I think is a very positive thing. Yeah.
Just want to make a very brief comment about that, Chair. You're quite right to draw attention to it. I mean, I think they recommended hornbeam and something or other else, but Perry Wood is very close by. It has a wide variety, it's an ancient wood, it has a wide variety of species in it. And it seems to me, since there are two almost defunct fruit trees in right next to the play area, it would be rather nice if the trees planted were actually fruit trees, because this is a low-income area, and a tiny orchard there would be fantastic. I hope they'll consider doing that.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Yeah, nice red apples, you know when they're ready then, don't you? Okay, can we move to a vote then, please? Can I see all hands in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 8. This is the Bromyard Business Park, and this is going to be presented by Rebecca.
Okay, so the committee are notified that since the publication of the report, comments have been received from Worcestershire Regulatory Services in relation to contaminated land, and they have confirmed they have no adverse comments. In addition, it should be noted that the publication of the new MPPF today has no effect on the assessment of this application. So agenda item 8 concerns a planning application at Units 7 and 8, Bromyard Business Park, Bromyard Road, application reference 24/00674/FUL. Planning permission is sought for a part change of use of Units 7 and 8 from a mixed use class B2 and B8, consisting of general industrial storage and distribution uses, into a gym, which is use class E. In terms of the site location, the site is situated to the north of Bromyard Road within Bromyard Business Park. St John's Cemetery is located to the east of the site, with Laverne Brook Local Nature Reserve to the west of the site. Residential properties on Sanctuary Close to the north of the site, and a railway line runs to the south. The site is not within a conservation area and does not contain any listed buildings. This slide shows the proposed site plan. The site itself comprises 967 square metres of floor space within a detached warehouse, along with an associated external parking area. This slide shows a photo of the front of the property, with the proposed gym to be located within the left part of the building. And this slide shows an aerial view of the site. And this slide shows a further aerial view of the site and how it relates to the surrounding area. So the nearest residential properties on Sanctuary Close can be seen to the right of the image. Returning to the proposed site plan, it is proposed to convert part of Units 7 and 8 within the warehouse building into a gym. Parking for the gym is also proposed to the external area surrounding the unit, comprising 44 car parking spaces, including 3 disabled bays. 12 cycle parking spaces are also proposed, along with 4 motorcycle parking spaces. The key issues to consider in the determination of the application are the acceptability of the proposals having regard to the principle of development, impact on neighbouring amenity, and highways matters. The proposals do not involve any external alterations to the building, and as such are acceptable in design terms. So in terms of the principle of development, in this location, the proposed change of use of part of Units 7 and 8 from a mixed B2, B8 use to a gym is considered to be acceptable in principle. The proposed gym is considered to be compatible with the surrounding uses and is sufficiently removed from residential properties, which are approximately 125 metres away. It is not considered that the proposed change of use will have any unacceptable impact on neighbouring amenity. Neighbouring properties are far enough away from the site that comings and goings should not cause them any disturbance. The gym is proposed to open 24 hours and the applicant has provided a 24-hour gym management policy which outlines measures to be taken by the gym to minimise noise and other disturbances during nighttime hours and how they will respond to any complaints effectively. A condition is recommended to ensure that the 24-hour gym management policy is operational at all times during the use of the premises as a gym, and that the management policy shall be reviewed every 12 months as a minimum, with any amended management policy to be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. With regard to highways considerations, the site is in a sustainable location within acceptable walking and cycling distances of the surrounding area, and there is access via public transport with bus stops in both directions within 230 metres of the site. That said, it is considered likely that the majority of attendees of the gym will drive to the site, and as such adequate parking provision is required. In line with the parking standards set out in the Streetscapes Design Guide, the proposed gym requires 44 car parking spaces. The applicant proposes to provide the required 44 car parking spaces, including 3 disabled bays, on an existing area of hard standing outside the proposed gym. The plans also show provision for 12 cycle parking spaces and 4 motorcycle parking spaces. Further details of these will be sought by condition, and a delivery and servicing management plan is also sought by condition. The proposals are considered unlikely to exacerbate any highway capacity issues, and there is not considered to be any adverse impact on highway safety. So overall, the proposals are considered to be acceptable with regard to highway matters. One comment from a neighbouring occupier was received in relation to the application, which included a query over the unit numbering, which has been confirmed to be correct as per the plans, and a query over where the car parking spaces would be located and whether the gym would be 24 hours. The location of the car parking spaces is shown on the site plan, and it has been confirmed that the gym proposes 24-hour opening. No objections have been received from neighbouring occupiers in relation to the application. So officers have concluded that, subject to the recommended conditions, the proposals are acceptable with regard to the principle of development, impact on neighbouring amenity and highways matters. So officers therefore recommend that the application is granted subject to conditions, and this concludes the officer presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca. I'll open the floor for questions, please, and I'll start with Councillor Udall.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of concerns which I would like some reassurance about. Mention of the management policy for the 24-hour working. I'm assuming that means it won't necessarily be staffed 24 hours a day, and members of the gym may be able to gain access through a pass card. I don't like that idea. I think the gym should be staffed 24 hours a day for a number of reasons. And the car park, which is in question, at the moment that car park is locked at night to prevent access to it. If that car park is open, I foresee a potential of problems of people accessing the remainder of the car park and causing problems and irritation to neighbours, which will be quite close to Sanctuary Close, for all sorts of potential antisocial activity. I am concerned about whether this as a application will actually open the door to the car park will have an illegal activity used on it. And we need to find a way, if possible, through conditions, to limit access to the car park to gym users only, or to restrict access to the rest of the car park outside the red line, because I have got a concern about overspill on there, and that will cause almighty tensions and stress to residents who are already suffering considerably from problems adjacent to the site.
Thank you for your questions. In terms of the first question, I'm just having a look at the management policy here, and it does specifically state that a trained nighttime manager or staff member will be present at all times to monitor the gym, so that includes overnight. In terms of the second question, I think, yeah, the location of the car parking spaces for the gym are shown on the site plan immediately adjacent to the gym, which is at the far end of the site, away from the residents on Sanctuary Close. I think, you know, it's anticipated that there's not going to be a huge amount of use of the gym in nighttime hours, and I think it's unlikely that it's going to result in any disturbance to residents on Sanctuary Close.
If I may, Chair, I beg to differ, because the gate would be unlocked and access to the car park will be permissible, and not just access to the car park which is going to be used for the gym, but to the entirety of the car park. And that does give me an element of concern that we're opening the gates to illegal activity on a large car park. I would like to see some sort of control which would prohibit people misusing that car park as a result of this application opening it up.
Through you, Chair, I'm just going to, if I can, Councillor Udall, I think it's a really good point. If I can just open up the plan, because there's just something I want to clarify on the layout plan, which I can't see because the size of the image. Just bear with me 5 minutes, please.
I've got no particular problem with this application. Obviously, it's good to support a local business and its fitness and so on. I'm not really expecting any big travel problems because people will come to the gym gradually over the day. They're not all going to come at one point and so on. So I don't really think there's going to be a big problem. But my question really is, and it's really a bit pertaining to what Councillor Kinnersley was saying earlier on about the previous application had to jump through lots of hoops when the travel plans. I'm wondering about this one. I don't think there is going to be a travel issue here, but it's a question of principle really. When do we ask for travel plans to be done, and when don't we ask them? And could we, perhaps not necessarily on this particular application, but in the future, shouldn't we always be asking for sustainable travel to be built into applications in the future? So to expect having a travel plan. So that's my question really. Is there a travel plan for it? If not, why not? And is it possible that we could start to do that sort of thing in the future for applications?
I think that's one for me, so I'll pick that up, and then I can come back while I'm still talking about to Councillor Udall. So in terms of travel plan, if you'll notice, it normally comes as a requirement from the Highway Authority. I don't know off the top of my head, and I can't quite put my finger on it quickly enough. There is the requirement within the Streetscapes Design Guide that sets the levels for when a travel plan is required. But what I'll do, Councillor Stephen, is I'll respond to you separately on that so that you're aware. But the Highway Authority have a set criteria of when they're required and what type of businesses require them and when they're not. I think it's down to the level of employees, but let me confirm that to you. But it's not required as part of this application.
Thank you.
In terms of your question, Councillor Udall, I was just looking at the site plan because I couldn't tell from the site plan. It appeared that there might be gates just on the edge of the red line, but actually there's zebra crossings, not gates. So if members were concerned about those eventualities, it is reasonable, in my view, to be able to impose a condition that looks at how the car parking area is limited so that access is not permitted. And my thoughts on that would be that the existing gates which are locked are relocated to the north where that red line is, where the zebra crossing is, and to the west where the other zebra crossing is, so that you have two sets of gates which would then only permit access into the gym car park only, and then it would prevent vehicles traversing round the whole of the site, which I can understand would be a concern. So that would be details to be submitted prior to the first use, and then that those gates are locked from a particular time that would be agreed. That's my view. The only other option that members have is to defer the application to ask for those details to be submitted and it be brought back. But those are the two options that I think are available. All members are just happy with the arrangements as they stand.
Councillor Udall.
Sorry, I don't want to hog the meeting, but I don't think what's been suggested is practically possible, because the road goes in two directions. It goes all around the building. So I think we probably need a deferral of this to look at this in a little bit more detail, because the gates which are currently access the building site, the site, are also very big and heavy and wrought iron, and would need. I find that difficult to see how that can happen without seeing detailed plans. So,
Through you, Chair, I probably didn't describe it properly. Either the relocation of the gates or new gates, but there would be two sets of gates, one to the north access road and then one to the other access roads, which is to the southwest. So there would be two access, so essentially that it would restrict access only into the gym car park. That would be my understanding of, would deal with the issue, and I do think that that reasonably could be dealt with by way of a condition.
I've got Councillor Kimberley next. That's all right.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two sort of related questions, and perhaps this is me not having seen my laptop here packed up when I arrived, so I'm having to read from a phone screen. I may not have seen it. Do they give us a forecast for the expected usership of this gym to justify the number of car parking spaces that have been allocated? I have got a follow-up question after that. I've looked through the plans and I haven't been able to find a forecast for the number of potential users at the gym, and it just seems striking how much floor space effectively is being allocated to cars in relation to the footprint of the building.
Through you, Chair, we've got some technical notes from the Highway Authority, so just bear with me.
Yeah, so in the Highway Authority's comments, they have basically said that the requirement as per the standards in the Streetscape Design Guide for parking for the proposed E-use class is 1 car parking space per 22 square metres, which for a site of this size equates to 44 spaces.
Okay.
So yeah, that is the number they are required to provide in accordance with the standards in the Streetscape Design Guide. So that's why they've provided that number of spaces.
Okay, so that number is essentially not necessarily related to a forecast of the number of users, it's just the requirement that they have to go through. Yeah. I have got a further question, if I may. Speaking as someone who, I used Purdaswell Gym for a while, and one of the things that I always admire in fellow gym users is people who would walk or cycle in. It seems to me, and I'm struggling to understand on the plan how pedestrian access is to be facilitated. It seems like there is excellent vehicle access, but it might not, but I'm struggling to see how a pedestrian would safely access the gym, and particularly with the issue around the gates. I'm just wondering how accessible this will actually be for the surrounding community. Which is going to necessarily put even more pressure on the car parking spaces that are available if people are not able to come in either by bus or by foot.
I'm happy to answer that. Through you, Chair, if I can just direct you to page 26. I know it's on your phone, so I do apologise. There is a diagram there which shows the parking area, and you can see to the right-hand side it says public right-of-way. That footpath does extend all the way to the Bromyard Road, so there is a footpath link that goes through, and then it links into the public right-of-way network that goes on beyond.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Barnes, please.
This is a site I know quite well, because obviously it used to be Mecco, and some people might know it as Joy Mining. It's a big site. And I think it's really disappointing we're not looking at a big scheme here, because just looking at a tiny part of it doesn't seem to make sense. It's very piecemeal, and I understand that we're looking at this particular application and we have to judge it on its merits. But it is frustrating that what was an enormous employment site is now being parcelled up bit by bit, and I think that's a failing of this council, actually, that we haven't actually got a plan in place for it. I've had comments from Sanctuary Close residents, not about this application, but about the use of the car park, and how, because the site is above the level of the gardens, all the headlights go straight into their bedroom windows, which is, at night, quite disturbing. I'm not quite sure where you'd put the gates, if you put gates on it. The car park is actually used during the day by all the car dealerships. That's where they park their cars, because they don't have enough room on site. So we're getting a lot of movement already in and out during the day due to that business. The gate proposed, I think, would have to be right. Looking at the plan, there are parking slots all the way along the building, Unit 8. So you'd have to have a gate at the end of there, presumably. And also, against Mecco Alley, there's a whole lot of parking, which is quite a way up. So how you'd actually gate that, I'm not quite sure, because it doesn't seem to be very practical. So on those reasons, I'd probably like a bit more information, and actually maybe a site visit next time, so people can fully understand what is going on that site, and we can reassure residents that there won't be improper use in the evenings, because at the moment, once the car dealerships have gone, the gate's locked, no problem. There won't be car racing at the bottom or dogging or whatever else could happen. But if the gates aren't there, anything could happen, and I worry for our residents. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Agar, please.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't entirely part of the application, but I think it might be something worth telling the committee. I remember we had a discussion about the proximity of the cemetery and the fact that boundary treatments had been destroyed in parts of this site, not related to the application, in fact. But I don't know, would you like to just say that about the green flag proposals?
Well, yes, I mean, the cemetery at St John's, the one at Astwood has got a green flag, and what we were looking to do as a council, I know, is for both the cemeteries to have a green flag. They had an inspection this year to kind of start it off, and I have talked to the local member about it, and we've got aspirations for some more tree planting, I believe, but it is outside of the red line for this project, but hopefully that will help local residents. I don't know that we want to just talk about the headlight thing that Councillor Barnes mentioned.
I'm happy to do so, Chair. In terms of the headlights, we are aware that that is an issue, and it is being dealt with separately by my team. In terms of this application, you can see that the car parking area here isn't anywhere near that the area which would affect Sanctuary Close. So in terms of the determination of this application, that is not something that, from an officer's point of view, that we would suggest that you take up as a concern.
Okay, I've got Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the concerns about closing off the other parts of the car park to avoid inappropriate use and unlawful use. So what I would suggest to be able to move forwards is whether we would give a grant approval subject to proposal being put in for making the site secure, to be also to have the input of local police, who presumably would be the people who would be called out in case of issue. So helping to make the site more secure in that way. So I would put that forward as a suggestion.
And I've got Councillor Kinsley, I think. Do I have you? Yeah. And then I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask, I may not be able to answer this, Paul, but do you know, and in fact members from across the river might know this, are there any other 24-hour gyms in St John's at the moment? There are? Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's, yeah, I just wanted to put it in context. Thank you.
Councillor Udall, you've got another point.
It's only to illustrate the point, really, that yes, the rest of the car park, where the car park lights, where the car lights are impacting on residents, is not part of this application. However, this application may enable that to actually be increased as a problem, which is why I require, and I think the committee should request potentially a deferral of this until we can actually get something sorted, so we can actually see in black and white in front of us a proposal which will illustrate how we can protect the rest of the car park from illegal activity. I'm concerned about leakage.
So Councillor Udall, can I just clarify? You are not happy with the proposal of an additional condition which, in consultation with potentially the police, or...
Well, I was just about to come on to that. I was going to say that this is already a high crime rate area. There are closed circuit television cameras in the Mecco Alley which are there because of local concern about antisocial behaviour. What I would like to do is seek a deferral to enable our officers to go back to the applicant to see what we can actually do to make this site more secure after dark, and to ensure that this is something which is going to be satisfactory for us as not only as community representatives, but the police and the residents themselves. Because I think what we're opening ourselves up for is potentially something very dangerous here, without actually understanding the full consequences. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board in a sense, to look to see what we can do to actually allow this application to proceed. Because I want it to happen, I want this gym to be there, not that I would ever use a gym. But to enable it, to enable this development to happen, at the moment I'm not satisfied we can do that.
Through you, Chair, I think that the point has been made, and if members are satisfied, we can certainly ask for further details, and that could be by additional gates, or it could be by replacing the existing gates for electronic gates which have access codes. There are options out there. I do feel that that could be a planning condition if members so wished, but again it is, as I think I said right at the beginning, the options are there that if members feel that they need that level of information before they make that decision, a deferral is an option for you, but I do feel that there is the opportunity for a condition that would tease out those details. But again, it's whether members want to see those before they make the decision.
Chair, it's not that I don't trust our officers, I do implicitly support, but I think what we need to be seen to be doing by the public and by the local community is making sure that we as councillors are satisfied. And I think for that reason and that reason alone, it should come back to this committee. I accept that it can be done through conditions, but I think we need to see the details as a planning committee to enable that to happen.
Councillor Udall, do you therefore want to propose a deferral? Yeah. And do I have anyone seconding that? Well,
Chair, if I could just clarify then in terms of the deferral, just so that we've got that very clear for the minutes. So it's a deferral for... clarification about the conditions about the car park. So it's for clarification of the arrangements for access to prevent unauthorised access that is not associated with the use, and to limit antisocial behaviour within the remainder of the site, because they're not looking at a wider development, they're only looking at a small part of the site. So,
and And Paul, would we also therefore have a site visit as well?
Through you, Chair, from officers' point of view, I don't feel that that's necessary, but again, members have the opportunity to request that prior to January's committee. So they will be able to see the publication of the report, they will be able to see the detail within that, and if they so wish to have a site visit, I think then would be the opportunity, rather than jumping and saying that we will definitely have a site visit now.
Perfect, thank you. Right, so we've got a proposal from Councillor Udall for deferral based on what you just said, Paul, and I've got Councillor Barnes as seconding it. So with that in mind, shall we move to a vote on deferring the project for more information, as Paul said? Can I see votes in favour, please? Oh, we're all agreed. Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so that is carried with the deferral. Thank you. Any other business? The only other thing I want to say is Happy Christmas to everybody. I'd like to thank the officers for all their work in this year. I think we are seeing some great work done by our planning team here. But also we need our committee to be well trained. And so in January, if we don't have a site visit, there will be training. Please put it in your calendars. I know we have as a committee done quite a lot of training, but you can never do enough. That's in my opinion. Pardon?
A running track around the table for training. Oh, that country.
Yeah, all right. And with that in mind, I'll close the meeting. Thank you and happy Christmas.